අද්විතීය 200 Mbps ස්පීඩ් එකකින් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ වේගවත්ම සහ පුළුල්තම හෝම් බ්‍රෝඩ්බෑන්ඩ් සම්බන්ධතාවය වන SLT මොබිටෙල් දේශීය ෆයිබර් බලවේගය ඔබත් අදම අත්විඳින්න.
හරිම සුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9, this Wednesday, the 21st of June, 2023. Praised but concerned, Sri Lanka co-group at UNHRC welcomes measures taken to address issues on long-term detentions and corruption, but raises concerns on the usage of PTA.
Also call on the government to protect freedoms of expression and association. As Sri Lanka takes forward its stated commitment on reconciliation, we stress the importance of transparency, accountability, inclusivity, and of building meaningfully on past work and recommendations that address the root causes of conflicts and impunity.
Hidden intentions. Amid widespread concern of attempts to suppress the media, State Minister of Mass Media says government's aim is to create quality media with a broadcasting authority bill. Repeat mistakes. A Sri Lankan airline flight delays for a second time, risking employment opportunities of Sri Lankans en route to South Korea. Consumer prices. Sri Lanka's headline inflation eases to 22.1% in May.
Alliance Finance මෙතුරු රන්නයි සේවාවෙන් රන් පවුම්කට රුපියල් 1,70,000ක ඉහළ අධිකාරම.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දිනූ සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
This is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Shanella Fernando in your top stories for tonight. The core group on Sri Lanka at the UN Human Rights Council pointed out that it is crucial for Sri Lanka to safeguard representative democracy by maintaining voters' confidence in the country's electoral system. Delivering a joint statement by the Sri Lanka core group at the ongoing UNHRC sessions, UK's Human Rights Ambassador Rita French urged Sri Lankan authorities to protect freedoms of expression and association. The fourth meeting of the 53rd session of the United Nations Human Rights Council is underway in Geneva, and an interactive dialogue on the annual report of the UNHRC was held during the session yesterday. Addressing the session on behalf of the Sri Lanka core group comprising Canada, Malawi, Montenegro, North Macedonia, the UK and the United States, UK's Human Rights Ambassador Rita French called the government of Sri Lanka to protect freedoms of expression and association.
This statement is by the Sri Lanka core group comprising Canada, Malawi, Montenegro, North Macedonia, the United States and the United Kingdom. We welcome Sri Lanka's initial steps towards addressing concerns around land returns, long-term detentions and corruption. These steps can provide a basis to begin a process to protect the rights of all Sri Lankans from all ethnic and religious communities. We remain concerned by the continued use of the Prevention of Terrorism Act. We acknowledge an ongoing effort to replace the PTA and urge the government to ensure that terrorism legislation is consistent with Sri Lanka's international obligations. We also call on the government to protect freedoms of expression and association. As Sri Lanka takes forward its stated commitment on reconciliation, we stress the importance of transparency, accountability, inclusivity, and of building meaningfully on past work and recommendations that address the root causes of conflicts and impunity. It is crucial that Sri Lanka safeguards its representative democracy by maintaining voters' confidence in the country's electoral systems and ensuring the independence of its institutions and commissions. We call on Sri Lanka to work with the High Commissioner and his office and remain ready to support Sri Lanka in addressing HRC Resolution 51/1.
Meanwhile, Sri Lanka's permanent representative to the United Nations office in Geneva, Himali Arunathilaka, highlighted Sri Lanka's commitment on the work related to truth and reconciliation.
Mr. President, we note the High Commissioner's acknowledgement of Sri Lanka's continued engagement, including with the special procedures in the presentation of his report. We have repeatedly mentioned in the Council the reasons for our categoric rejection of resolutions 46/1 and 51/1 that set up the external evidence gathering mechanism. Such intrusive mechanisms have wide-ranging legal and political implications for all countries. It is also contrary to the Council's founding principles and prejudges the commitment of domestic legal processes to complex national issues. In the meantime, work related to truth and reconciliation continues to progress in the country with the assistance of bilateral partners. The government also continues its support to the domestic institutions on missing persons, reparations, and national reconciliation and unity to carry on their work steadily. Consultations continue on the draft anti-terrorism bill to ensure its compliance with international standards while catering to domestic needs. We appreciate the assistance received under the voluntary fund, which enabled a capital-based officer to participate in Sri Lanka's UPR review process in February. Sri Lanka will continue to engage constructively in those aspects of the Council's work that have been productive and beneficial to our people.
In Parliament today, opposition parliamentarians raised concern over the proposed Broadcasting Authority Act and urged government to refrain from attempts to suppress the media. However, State Minister of Mass Media Shantha Bandara assured that government has no intention to suppress the media and is yet to draft the bill.
විද්‍යුත් විකාශන ආයතන නියාමනය සම්බන්ධයෙන් යම් නිශ්චිත නීතියක් පැවතිය යුතුය යන්න සැවොම පිළිගන්න කරුණක්. අපි කියනවා ඒ නියාමනය කිරීමේ ප්‍රතිපත්ති සම්පාදනය ජනමාධ්‍ය ශාස්ත්‍රයටම ලබා දෙන්නයි කියලා රජයක් ඒකට ඇඟිලි ගහන්න යන්නේ නැතුව. නියාමනයක නාමයෙන් ආණ්ඩුව විවේචනය කරනු ලබන මාධ්‍ය මර්ධනය සිදු නොවිය යුතුයි. වත්මන් රජය ජනමාධ්‍ය නියාමනය සඳහා මේ වන විට ඉදිරිපත් කර ඇති ලියවිල්ල මගින් අනවශ්‍ය ලෙස මාධ්‍ය හසුරුවාලීමට යම් උත්සාහයක නිරත වන බව පෙනී යනවා. එය මෙරට ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදයේ කෙරෙහි බරපතල ලෙස බලපෑම් ඇති කළ හැකියි. ඒ ඉදිරිපත් කරන්නට පෙර විශේෂයෙන්ම මාධ්‍ය ශාස්ත්‍රයේ විවිධ කොටස්කරුවන් සමග විධිමත් සාකච්ඡාවකට ප්‍රවේශ වන්නවද කියන එක මම අහන්න කැමතියි.
නියාමනයක් අවශ්‍ය නැහැ කියලා කියන දර කවුරුත් නැහැ. හැබැයි ශීලාචාර රටවල් වල, දියුණු රටවල් වල, ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදී රටවල් වල එවැනි නියාමනයන් ගොඩනගාගත්තු ක්‍රමවේදයන් තියෙනවා, පූර්වාදර්ශ තියෙනවා. කරුණාකරලා ඒවා අනුගමනය කරන්න කියලා කියන එක ඉල්ලීමක් කරනවා. එහෙම නැත්නම් අපිට කියන්න වෙන්නේ අර මාධ්‍ය ආයතනත් මාධ්‍ය වේදිනොත් හීල කරන්න හදන උත්සාහයක් විදිහට තමයි අපි මේක එහෙම නැත්නම් නිර්වචනය කරන්න වෙන්නේ.
කිසිසේත් ඊටා වාක්‍යයෙන් කියනවා ගරු ජනාධිපතිතුමාට ගරු අග්‍රාමාත්‍යතුමා හෝ වර්තමාන ආණ්ඩුවට කිසිම අවශ්‍යතාවයක් නැහැ මාධ්‍ය මර්ධනය කරන්න. පැහැදිලි මාධ්‍ය නියාමනයක් රට තුල ඇති කිරීම තමයි අපේ ඒකායන ප්‍රාර්ථනාව වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. එහෙම නැත්නම් මාධ්‍ය ආයතන හෝ මාධ්‍ය වේදීන් ඉලක්ක කරගනිමින් යම් මර්ධනයක් කිරීමට අවශ්‍යතාවයකුත් නැහැ. කිසිසේත් එහෙම මර්ධනයක් කරන්න අපි කටයුතු කරන්නේත් නැහැ. තාම මේ සංකල්ප පත්‍රිකාවක් විතරයි තියෙන්නේ. මේක කෙටුම්පතක් බවට පත් කරලවත් නැහැ තව. ඒ කෙටුම්පත බවට පත් කිරීම සඳහා අවශ්‍ය සියලු දෙනාගේ අදහස් යෝජනා ලබාගෙන කෙටුම්පත සකස් කරද්දී ඔබතුමාලටත් ඕන ආකාරයෙන් මැදිහත් වෙන්න තිබෙනවා. අපි කිසිම වෙලාවක දරදඬු විදිහට මේ පනත ගෙනල්ලා සම්මත කරන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ නැහැ. එහෙම අවශ්‍ය නම් ඒකට අවශ්‍ය කරන බහුතරය අපට තිබෙනවා. එහෙම නැතුව ඊටාම නම්‍යශීලී විදිහට සහ රටට යහපත් විදිහට ඊටාම හොඳ මාධ්‍ය කරණයක් අපේ රට තුල ඇති කිරීම පරමාර්ථය කරගෙන තමයි මේ කටයුත්ත කරන්නේ.
Construction of Terminal 2 of the Bandaranaike International Airport in Katunayaka resumed after ending a hiatus of 1 year due to a suspension of donor funds after Sri Lanka's announcement of a debt default last year. Construction resumed following cabinet approval to allocate 500 million rupees for the purpose via Airport and Aviation Services Lanka Limited.
Construction of the second passenger terminal at the Bandaranaike International Airport came to a standstill last year following the suspension of funding offered by the Japan International Cooperation Agency upon Sri Lanka announcing a debt default. JICA said they will resume funding following the completion of debt restructuring talks with Sri Lanka's creditors. However, to avoid further delays, Airport and Aviation Services Lanka Limited allocated 500 million rupees in funding for the construction. With that development, construction of the second passenger terminal at the Bandaranaike International Airport in Katunayaka resumed yesterday.
We have to abandon this work as a result of the economic issues that rose in the country. Since our government is trying to take remedial measures to protect the economy and enhance the economic activities within the difficult framework we are facing. Therefore, we have to do certain remedial work in order to ensure that the work which has been done earlier will not go waste. I queried the cabinet paper and the cabinet has given approval to spend 500 million from the funds ASL and do this remedial work.
Malaysian High Commissioner Badli Hisham Adam has accepted a request made by Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena to increase the number of flights between Malaysia and Sri Lanka. During a meeting with the Sri Lankan Prime Minister yesterday, the Malaysian High Commissioner confirmed that Malaysian Airlines plans to operate additional flights to Sri Lanka, while two other airlines have also expressed interest to introduce flights operations between Kuala Lumpur and Colombo.
Malaysian High Commissioner Badli Hisham Adam yesterday called on Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena at the Temple Trees to discuss bilateral relations with special emphasis on enhancing trade and investment cooperation. During the meeting, the Malaysian envoy accepted a request made by Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena to increase the number of flights between Malaysia and Sri Lanka. Accordingly, the Malaysian High Commissioner has stated that Malaysian Airlines plans to operate additional flights, while two other airlines, Air Asia and Batik Air, have also expressed interest to introduce flights between Kuala Lumpur and Colombo. He also highlighted that Sri Lanka could be a major airline hub for massive traffic between the West and East. Meanwhile, discussing the employment quota of 10,000 provided by the Malaysian government for Sri Lankans to work in Malaysia, the Prime Minister has requested to include new employment opportunities in manufacturing and nursing. The Premier also urged Malaysian entrepreneurs to enter into new areas of investment in Sri Lanka, in addition to the growing hospitality industry.
4 separate shooting incidents were reported in Sri Lanka during the past 24 hours. The latest is reported from Valasmulla area in Hambantota, where 3 individuals were injured after a shooting. Police media spokesman SSP Nihal Talduwa said the shooting had occurred when a former police officer had opened fire, leaving 3 persons injured this evening. With that, here's a look at other 3 shooting incidents reported within the past 24 hours.
A 34-year-old individual was reported dead following a shooting at a medical center on the Piliandala Road in Kottawa this morning. According to police, 2 unidentified gunmen on a motorcycle had opened fire at the victim, who is identified as a resident of Mattegoda area and an employee of the medical center. Meanwhile, a 52-year-old man was shot dead in the Hiddarua area in Koskoda this morning by 2 unidentified gunmen who arrived on a motorcycle. Koskoda police say the shooting was carried out by using a pistol and believe underworld connections led to the murder. In a separate shooting incident in Niyandagala area in Homagama last night, a former army soldier was gunned down by 3 unidentified gunmen who had arrived in a van and on a motorcycle. 3 shots had been fired at the 46-year-old victim with a T-56 firearm. He was pronounced dead after being rushed to the Homagama base hospital. 3 police teams have been appointed to investigate the incident.
TNL TV Private Limited, Sri Lanka's first privately owned television channel, celebrated its 30th anniversary today. TNL TV is an English and Sinhala language television station owned by Telshan Network. Founded in 1993, the channel was launched by renowned media personality Shan Vikramasinghe. Commemorating its 30th anniversary, a Pirit chanting ceremony was held at the Ratmalana Paramadam Chetiya Pirivena. Several other religious activities and celebration programs were also organized. Sri Lanka's May headline inflation eases to 22.1%. Stay tuned for more details after this short commercial break.
ගොඩමඩ පෙරලි කරන බලපුළුවන් කාරයා මහින්ද්‍රා යුවෝ ඩීමෝ වෙතින්. වැඩි එම ගොඩයි ගොඩම තමයි ස්වරාජ් ට්‍රැක්ටර් ඩීමෝ වෙතින්.
අබාස් මිලගණන් දැවන්ත ලෙස අඩු කළා. TV, ෆ්‍රිජ්, AC, වොෂින් මැෂින්, ලැප්ටොප්, ජංගම දුරකථන මුළු තැන්ගේ උපකරණ ඇතුළු නිෂ්පාදන රැසක් අඩුම මිලට අබාස් වෙතින් පමණයි.
ඒ ත්‍රිත්වයේ තහවුරු කළ විශිෂ්ටත්වය දුෂ්‍යන්ත මහබදුගේ චරිත දිසානායක සමිතරත් නායක සිසිජී නුගේගොඩ ගම්පහ.
Physics නිලන්ත ජයසූරිය නවපන්ති ආරම්භය සුසිපුවන් ගම්පහ සීලින් පෙන් නුගේගොඩ සයන්ස් සෙන්ටර් ගාල්ල.
පහනුවර කුරුණෑගල කෑගල්ල අංකිකේ භෞතික විද්‍යා පාඨමාලාව නුගේගොඩද අතික්‍රමණය කළ වගයි. ෆිසික්ස් දර්ශන ඔකුවෙල.
තනිව යන ගමනට නිවැරදි ගිණුම් කරන මග හේමාල් පෙරේරා.
Welcome back in more news. The National Consumer Price Index-based headline inflation in Sri Lanka has eased further in May to 22.1% from 33.6% recorded in the previous month. The Department of Census and Statistics said year-on-year inflation of the food group dropped to 15.8% in May, while year-on-year inflation in the non-food group reduced to 27.6%.
The rate of inflation as measured by the National Consumer Price Index on a year-on-year basis reduced to 22.1% in May this year from 33.6% recorded in April. According to the Department of Census and Statistics, the year-on-year inflation in the food group reduced to 15.8% during May from 27.1% recorded in April, while the non-food group inflation subsided from a rate of 39% in April to 27.6% in May this year. For the month of May, the contribution to inflation by food commodities on year-on-year basis was 7.27%. The contribution of non-food items was 14.88%, which is mainly due to increases in value changes in the categories of housing, water, gas and other fuels, with a contribution of 5.13%, transport 1.42% and restaurant and hotels 1.17%. As per the latest projections of the central bank, headline inflation is forecast to reach single-digit levels in early third quarter of this year and to stabilize around mid-single-digit levels over the medium term.
At the weekly Treasury bill auction today, the total offered amount of 110 billion rupees was fully accepted, while the weighted average yield rate edged down. The Public Debt Department said it accepted 50 billion rupees worth 3-month bills at 23%, down 16 basis points from the previous week. 30 billion rupees worth of 6-month bills were sold at 19.49%, down 112 basis points from a week earlier. All offered 30 billion rupees of 12-month bills were sold at 16.99%, down 109 basis points from a week earlier. The Colombo stock indices closed in positive territory today as a result of price gains in counters such as Sampath Bank, Commercial Bank and Millstock Hope. High net worth and institutional investor participation was noted in John Keel's holdings and Hema's holdings. Mixed interest was observed in Millstock Hope, Lanka IOC and Commercial Bank, whilst retail interest was noted in LOLC Finance, Brown's Investment and First Capital Treasuries. Foreign participation in the market activity remained at subdued levels, with foreigners closing as net buyers. Turnover crossing 1.6 billion rupees, with top contributions from the capital goods sector and food, beverage and tobacco sector. Lanka IOC, Commercial Bank and First Capital Treasuries were also among the top turnover contributors. Welcome back. In one of our headline stories tonight, another group of Sri Lankan workers seeking jobs in South Korea lost the opportunity to depart for South Korea yesterday due to a delay of the scheduled Sri Lankan Airlines flight. A group of 52 individuals who had received jobs in the fishing industry were scheduled to leave for South Korea as the 800th group with job mandates in South Korea.
52 workers from Sri Lanka were scheduled to leave for South Korea yesterday for employment. This was the 800th group that was prepared to send to South Korea by the Foreign Employment Bureau. Before their departure, a special ceremony was also organized by the Foreign Employment Bureau. However, due to a delay of the Sri Lankan Airlines flight they were scheduled to depart on, the group lost the opportunity to leave for South Korea yesterday. Foreign Employment Minister Manushana Nayakara, meanwhile speaking in Parliament, took the situation up.
මේ ගුවන් ප්‍රමාදය දිගින් දිගටම සිද්ධ වෙනවා. මීට කලින් දවස් 3ක් මේ විදියටම ප්‍රමාද වුණා කියන්නේ කෙලිම ෆ්ලයිට් එක කැන්සල්ම කියන තත්ත්වයට පත් වුණා සමහර වෙලාවෙදී. ඒ වගේ අවස්ථාවලදී කොරියාවේ මානව සම්පත් දෙපාර්තමේන්තුව ඒ අය බාර ගැනීමට ඒ රටේ ඉන්නේ උදේ 8ත් 9ත් ඒ අතර වෙලාවක් අපිට නිශ්චිතව සඳහන් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒ වෙලාවෙන් පිට යනවා නම් බාර ගන්න සූදානම් නැහැ. අපි ඊයේ දවසේදීත් උත්සාහ කරා තව පැය කිහිපයක් මේක රඳව ගන්න බැහැ. අවසානයේදී අපිට මේ ගමන කැන්සල් කරන්න සිද්ධ වුණා. ඊයේ යන්න සූදානම් වුණේ කොරියාවට යන 800 වෙනි කණ්ඩායම. අපි මේ පිළිබඳව අවධානය යොමු කළ කොරියානු රාජ්‍යයත් සමග සාකච්ඡා කරලා මේ වෙනකොට අපිට අනුමැතිය ලැබිලා තියෙනවා. මින් ඉදිරියට ඒ අය බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා කොරියන් ගුවන් සේවය නැවත වතාවක් ලංකාවත් සමග ගුවන් ගමන් ආරම්භ කරන්න. අපි දැනට తాවකාලික විසඳුමක් යොදලා තියෙනවා. මීළඟ ගුවන් යාන අපි මේ සිංගප්පූරුව හරහා කොරියානු ගුවන් සේවය පාවිච්චි කරලා යවන්න. මේක ඉතාමත්ම නිර්ලජ්ජිත විදියට මේ ප්‍රමාදය සිද්ධ කරනවා. කොච්චර කිව්වත් බීරියලින්ට වීණා වාදනය කරන්න වගේ තමයි මේ අයට මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් කිව්වට කිසිම තැකීමක් කරන්නේ නැහැ කොයිම ආකාරයකින්වත්.
With that, we wrap up tonight's edition of First at 9. Thank you for joining. Have a good night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.